Welcome to this Skillick Explains video, and welcome to the results of another poll. Regular viewers will be getting used to this format by now, I guess, where I set the question, which of the following would you rely on the most heavily to discover something about a company's financial health? And I'm imagining here that you're opening up a set of accounts which can easily run to 100 pages or more for a listed company. You've gone to roughly the middle. You've identified 4 pages in a row, if you like, followed by lots and lots of subsequent follow-up pages, and you're picking between them. So here are the results of the poll on which page you would choose. First of all, the profit and loss account. This comes at the front of the section I've mentioned, in the middle of a set of accounts, and 4.5% of respondents said they'd choose that. Then I offered the balance sheet, which comes right behind it, and that attracted 36.4% of the poll votes. Then the cash flow statement, which comes behind the profit and loss account and balance sheet, 47.7%, and in fact the winning answer on this particular poll. And then I offered the supporting notes, which come behind those 3 primary statements and are full of lots of detail about the numbers within those primary statements, and that was 11.4% of the vote. So let's just go through these primary statements and think about why I got the answers I did, and also where my final vote would have gone. So the profit and loss account. Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king, goes the famous cliche, if you like. And the reason I think only 4.5% of people said they choose the profit and loss account as a source of information about a company's financial health is that it is just a snapshot, a fleeting view of 1 year's activity, derived using accounting rules about revenue and costs. And those rules allow for a degree of subjectivity and therefore can make comparing 2 companies' results side by side quite tricky using just profit. The second problem is there are many different profit lines, everything from gross profit, favoured by the likes of Terry Smith, through operating profit, through EBITDA, all the way to net profit. So choosing between them can be tricky. And profit ultimately is not cash. It's not certain. If debts don't get paid, for example, revenue may be under threat, as recorded in the profit and loss account. So I'm not that surprised that only a minority of respondents chose that particular primary statement. Now for the balance sheet, 36.6%, or 36.4% I should say, of respondents, and the balance sheet essentially is a snapshot of what a company owns, its assets, minus what it owes, its liabilities, and how it's all been paid for, called shareholders' funds, and it balances because net assets, assets minus liabilities, should equal shareholders' funds in total. Now the balance sheet is Sir David Tweedie, the ex-chairman of the International Accounting Standards Board's favourite of the statements available, because it's cumulative. Unlike profit and loss accounts and cash flow statements, which I'll come to in a moment, which are snapshots of 1 year's activity, the balance sheet is the cumulative picture of the wealth the company has accumulated to this point in time, and also where it's been applied in terms of shareholders' funds. And as such, for a snapshot on a company's financial health, it's quite hard to beat. Within it, you can analyse things like liquidity, ability to pay short-term debts, solvency, that's funding, the application of and matching of long-term liabilities with long-term assets, short-term liabilities with short-term assets, and so on. So it's quite a good way to build a picture of a company's financial health. But it wasn't the top answer. That went to the cash flow statement, 47.7% of poll respondents. Now the cash flow statement is undoubtedly useful. It is a snapshot. It's 1 year's activity, this time not expressed in accounting revenue and cost terms, but in terms of cash inflows and cash outflows, and it's helpfully grouped into several sections. You've got operating cash flows at the top, you've got investing cash flows in the middle, and you've got financing or funding cash flows further down. And there's no doubt about it, in terms of a credible number over time that gives you a consistent view of a company's ability to turn sales into something they could pay back to shareholders, i.e. dividends, cash flow is a pretty useful measure. So I have some sympathy with the people who voted for the cash flow statement. Now the notes, the supporting notes, of which there are many, only got 11.4% of the vote, but my money would actually be on the balance sheet plus those supporting notes. Whilst profit and loss accounts and to a greater extent cash flow statements are very, very useful, at the end of the day, understanding a company's cumulative financial position and the notes that give the detail on the asset and liability picture, including those contingent liabilities, those slightly hidden obligations which exist, as they call it, off the balance sheet, that's a pretty useful way to get a handle on a company's overall financial health. Now, to find out more about this big topic, please do go to our comprehensive video library, killick.com/learn. And if you'd like to find out more about analysing companies at a basic level, then you might want to look at the back of my How to Invest in Equities guide, and that's available if you ping me an email, editor@killick.com.